Out here, the wind has a voice. If you stand still long enough in the high plains of western Kansas, you can hear it whispering through the hard winter wheat. It tells stories. Most of them are boring, stories about harvest yields, church potlucks, and who's dating who. But if you listen closely to the wind in Holcomb, it tells a different story. A story about the night the American dream got its throat cut. A story about how safety is just an illusion we sell ourselves to sleep at night. Welcome to November 1959. Let me paint you a picture of Holcomb, Kansas. It's the middle of nowhere, and the folks there liked it that way. It's a place where lock your doors was a foreign concept. Why would you? Everybody knew everybody. The biggest trouble you'd find was a teenager driving a pickup truck too fast on a dirt road. It was the kind of place where the silence wasn't scary. It was peaceful, until it wasn't. At the center of this quiet little universe was the River Valley Farm, and the kings of that castle were the Clutter family. You couldn't write a better family if you tried. They were the poster children for 1950s success. You had Herb Clutter, the patriarch. He wasn't just a farmer, he was the farmer. Chairman of the Kansas Conference of Farm Organizations, a man who didn't drink, didn't smoke, and paid his bills on time. A straight shooter. A man people looked up to. Then you had his wife, Bonnie. She was a ghost in her own house, struggling with nerves, prone to depression, retreating into her bedroom while life bustled outside. But she was loved. She was part of the fabric. And the kids, Nancy and Kenyon. Nancy was the town darling, smart, pretty, organized, the kind of girl who baked cherry pies and taught younger girls how to play instruments. Kenyon was 15, a quiet kid who loved tinkering with machines and chasing coyotes in the pasture. They were good kids, the kind of kids who had their whole lives mapped out in straight, clean lines. November 14th, 1959. It was a Saturday, a crisp autumn day, the last day of their lives. If you were watching them that day, nothing would have looked out of place. Herb was busy with farm business. Nancy was baking. Kenyon was working on a project in the basement. It was aggressively normal. It was the kind of mundane routine that feels boring when you're in it, but looks like paradise once it's gone. But while the Clutters were going about their Saturday, thinking about Sunday church and school on Monday, something wicked was heading their way. Something dark was rolling across the Kansas plains in a black 1949 Chevrolet sedan. 400 miles away, two men were sharing a bottle and a plan, Perry Smith and Dick Hickock. They weren't like the Clutters. They were the debris of the American dream, the cracks in the pavement. Dick was the smooth talker, the face of the operation. He had a crooked smile and a head full of bad ideas. Perry was the muscle, but he was more than that. He was a wounded animal, stunted legs from a motorcycle accident, a soul full of poetry and violence. He was a ticking time bomb waiting for a match, and Dick Hickock was holding the lighter. They weren't coming to Holcomb for the scenery. They were coming for a score. See, prison is a great place to learn bad habits. While locked up, Dick had heard a story from a cellmate named Floyd Wells. Floyd had worked for Herb Clutter once upon a time, and Floyd, trying to impress a guy like Dick, spun a tall tale. He told Dick that Herb Clutter was rich, filthy rich. He told him that Herb did business in cash, that he kept a safe in his office, and inside that safe, $10,000, $10,000. In 1959, that was a fortune. That was a ticket to Mexico. That was a new life. That was freedom. Dick Hickock ate that lie up. He swallowed it whole. He didn't bother to fact-check. He didn't know that Herb Clutter famously never carried cash, that he did all his business by check. He didn't know there was no safe. He just saw the dollar signs. He recruited Perry for one reason. Perry was a natural-born killer. That's what Dick called him. He needed someone who could pull the trigger when things got heavy. So they drove. Across the state of Kansas, eating up the miles, fueled by greed and a map drawn on a lie, they stopped to buy supplies, rubber gloves, rope, tape, a 12-gauge shotgun. This wasn't a crime of passion. This wasn't a drunken brawl gone wrong. This was cold. This was calculated. Dick had a rule: no witnesses. That was the plan from the jump. Walk in, get the cash, kill them all. Walk out. Clean. Simple. As the sun went down on November 14th, the darkness over Holcomb felt heavier than usual. The wind picked up, rattling the window panes. Inside the Clutter home, the lights went out one by one. The family went to sleep. The black Chevy pulled up to the edge of the property in the dead of night. The silence of the plains was deafening, just the crunch of tires on gravel. Dick and Perry got out. They cut the telephone lines first, snipped them clean. That's the moment the Clutter home stopped being a sanctuary and became a cage. No one could call for help. No one could hear a scream. They were an island in a sea of wheat, completely alone. They entered the house through an unlocked door. Remember what I said? Nobody locked their doors in Holcomb. Why would they? What happened inside those walls over the next hour is the stuff of nightmares. We can piece it together from the evidence, from the confessions that came later. But the terror, the sheer raw terror of those final moments, is something only the Clutters and their killers ever truly knew. Imagine waking up to a flashlight beam in your face. Imagine the smell of stale alcohol and cheap hair oil invading your clean, Christian home. Imagine the shotgun barrel looking like a cannon in the dark. They woke Herb first. They demanded the money. They wanted the safe. Herb, confused, terrified, probably tried to reason with them. He told them the truth. There is no safe. I don't have that kind of money. But criminals don't like the truth when it doesn't pay. Dick and Perry didn't believe him. They tore the office apart. They ripped through papers. They looked for the hidden panel in the wall. Nothing. Just business records and a few dollars in change. The frustration in the air must have been electric. The plan was falling apart. The perfect score was a bust. But they were already committed. They had crossed the line. They woke the others. Bonnie, Nancy, Kenyon. They moved them. They separated them. This is the part that chills your blood, the control. They didn't just start shooting wild. They took their time. They tied them up. They used the rope they bought. They used the tape. They took Herb and Kenyon to the basement, the boiler room, the playroom. It's cold down there, the smell of furnace oil. They tied Kenyon to a couch. They tied Herb to a mattress box. They took the women upstairs, Bonnie in her bedroom, Nancy in hers. Think about the psychology of that. The family is separated. They can hear the footsteps. Maybe they can hear muffled voices, but they can't see each other. They don't know who is safe and who is hurting. The suspense in that house must have been thick enough to choke on. Perry Smith, the volatile one, the sensitive one, he had a weird moment of humanity in the middle of the monster act. He put a pillow under Kenyon's head to make him comfortable. He put a mattress box under Herb so he wouldn't be on the cold concrete. It's twisted, right? To care about a man's comfort 5 minutes before you end his life. But that was Perry. Paradoxical. Broken. Dick didn't care about comfort. He just wanted to know where the money was. But there was no money. The tipping point came. The realization that the 10 grand was a myth. They had driven across the state, risked everything for nothing. A portable radio, a pair of binoculars, less than $50 in cash. That's when the plan shifted from robbery to elimination. No witnesses. The shotgun roared in the basement. Once, twice. The sound must have been thunderous in that quiet house. Upstairs, Bonnie and Nancy had to have heard it. They had to know. The inevitable was coming up the stairs. Then 2 more shots. And silence. The black Chevy backed out of the driveway. It rolled away into the darkness, leaving the River Valley farm silent again. But it was a different kind of silence now. It wasn't peaceful. It was the silence of the grave. Sunday morning, November 15th. The sun came up just like it always did. The roosters crowed. The frost was on the grass. Nancy Clutter's friend, Susan Kidwell, and another friend arrived to pick the family up for church. That was the routine. The Clutters were never late. Never. But the house was quiet. The doors were shut. No movement in the windows. Susan knocked. No answer. She tried the door. It opened. She stepped inside. "Nancy! Nancy!" Nothing. Just the house settling. They went upstairs. They found Nancy first. I won't describe the gore for you, but I will describe the shock. Seeing your best friend, the golden girl of the town, destroyed. It broke something in those girls. They ran. They screamed. They ran out of that house like hell itself was snapping at their heels. "Nancy's dead. Nancy's dead." The scream tore through the morning air. The police arrived, the sheriff, and soon the man who would become the face of this investigation, Alvin Dewey from the Kansas Bureau of Investigation, the KBI. Alvin Dewey was a friend of Herb Clutter. In a town this small, the lawman and the victim are always neighbors. Dewey walked into that crime scene, and he saw the impossibility of it. There was no struggle, no forced entry. The phone lines were cut. The victims were tied up with expert knots. It was an execution. But why? Dewey looked at the scene and saw a puzzle with missing pieces. The wallet was gone, but valuable jewelry was left behind. The house wasn't ransacked in the way a normal burglary looks. It was specific, targeted. And then the clues, or the lack of them. There was barely anything. A dusty boot print on a mattress box, a diamond pattern on the sole. That was it. No fingerprints, no weapon, no witnesses. Just 4 bodies and a whole lot of questions. News travels fast in a small town, but bad news travels at the speed of light. By noon, the entire population of Holcomb knew. By evening, the entire state of Kansas knew. Fear is a powerful virus. Before that Sunday, people left their keys in the ignition and their back doors wide open. By Sunday night, every hardware store within 50 miles was sold out of deadbolts and ammunition. For the first time, neighbors looked at neighbors with suspicion. Was it the hired hand? Was it the guy who delivered the milk? Was it someone with a grudge against Herb? Nobody suspected 2 drifters from 400 miles away. Nobody suspected a robbery gone wrong because nothing was really stolen. It looked personal. It looked like hate, and that's what made it evergreen. That's why we're still talking about it. Because if it could happen to the Clutters, the safest, richest, most protected family in the county, it could happen to anyone. It shattered the illusion of the American sanctuary. The wolf wasn't just at the door. The wolf was already in the basement. While Holcomb was paralyzed with fear, Dick and Perry were eating a burger. They had driven back to Kansas City. They cleaned the car. They buried the tape and the rope. They went about their lives. Perry checked into a hotel and slept. Dick went to his parents' house for Sunday dinner, ate chicken, and watched TV right while the news reports started rolling in. Imagine the psychopathy required to do that. To sit at a dinner table, pass the potatoes, and make small talk, knowing that hours earlier you wiped out an entire family. Dick Hickock didn't bat an eye. He thought he was smarter than the cops. He thought he'd pulled off the perfect crime. Perry was different. The guilt, or maybe just the paranoia, started eating at him immediately. He kept asking Dick, "Do you think they found them? Do you think they found the shells?" Dick just laughed. "No witnesses, Perry. No witnesses." Back in Holcomb, the funeral was held. 1,000 people showed up. 1,000 people standing in the cold wind, staring at 4 caskets. It was the biggest gathering the town had ever seen. Agent Alvin Dewey stood there watching the crowd. He was tired. He hadn't slept. He was under immense pressure. The press was descending on Holcomb like vultures. The New York Times, the wire services. Everyone wanted to know who killed the Clutters. Dewey vowed he wouldn't rest until he caught them, but he had nothing to go on. He was chasing ghosts. Days turned into weeks. The trail went cold. The theories got wilder. Some said it was a hitman. Some said Herb Clutter had a secret life. The town was turning on itself. Friendships ended over accusations. The fabric of the community was unraveling. Meanwhile, Dick and Perry hit the road. They left Kansas. They went to Mexico. They were living the high life on the pawned binoculars and the radio money. They were free, but money runs out fast when you're living on the run. And two guys like that, trapped in a car together, breathing the same air, sharing the same dark secret. Tensions rise. Perry started to see Dick for what he was, a liar, a con man. There was no $10,000. There never was. Perry had become a quadruple murderer for pocket change. The resentment simmered in him like poison. Dick started to see Perry as a liability. Perry was weird. He was moody. He talked about weird dreams. He was a loose end. They drifted. Mexico, California, Nevada. They were sharks. They had to keep moving to survive. They ran scams. They wrote bad checks. They stole cars. They were on a spree, a downward spiral fueled by desperation. But remember the cellmate, Floyd Wells? Back in the penitentiary, Floyd Wells was listening to the radio. He heard the news bulletin about the Clutter Family Murders. 4 members of a prominent farm family found bound and shot. Floyd's heart must have stopped. He knew that setup. He knew who he'd told about the safe. He knew who asked for the layout of the house. Dick Hickock. Floyd was in a bind. He was a convict. Snitches get stitches, right? That's the code. But this was 4 innocent people, 2 kids. Floyd wrestled with it. He paced his cell. He sweated. If he talked, he might get time off his sentence. If he talked, he might be a hero, or he might get a shank in the ribs in the shower. But the reward money was climbing, and the guilt of knowing he'd essentially drawn the map for the killers was heavy. Floyd Wells asked to speak to the warden. This is the turning point. This is the moment the universe decided to balance the scales. While Dewey was in Kansas chasing dead ends, a call came through from the prison. "We have an inmate who says he knows who did it." Dewey was skeptical. They'd had 100 false leads, crazy people confessing for attention, jealous neighbors pointing fingers. But they interviewed Floyd, and Floyd gave them details. He told them about the layout. He told them about the safe that didn't exist. He told them about Dick Hickock and his friend Perry Smith. He told them about the 1949 Chevy. It all fit. The timeline, the car, the motive. Dewey felt the adrenaline kick in. Finally, a name, 2 names. But knowing who did it and finding them are 2 different things. Dick and Perry were ghosts. They were drifting across the American West, changing license plates, sleeping in motels under fake names. They could be anywhere. The manhunt went nationwide. Be on the lookout. Bolo, 2 white males, armed and dangerous. The net was cast, but the ocean is big. Dick and Perry had made their way to Las Vegas. It feels fitting, doesn't it? A city built on risk and luck. They were running out of both. They had returned to the US from Mexico because they ran out of cash. They were back to writing bad checks, trying to hustle enough gas money to get to the next town. On December 30th, 1959, a Las Vegas patrol officer spotted a Chevy. It matched the description. He saw 2 men inside. It wasn't a SWAT team takedown. It wasn't a shootout. It was a routine traffic stop. License and registration. Dick Hickock, ever the smooth talker, tried to charm his way out of it. He gave a fake name. He smiled. He played it cool. But the cops were sharper than Dick gave them credit for. They checked the VIN number on the car. It came back stolen. They were arrested, not for murder, but for parole violation and car theft. They sat in a Vegas jail cell, thinking they'd just been busted for a minor scrape. They didn't know the KBI agents were already on a plane. They didn't know Floyd Wells had sung like a canary. They thought they were safe from the big charge. Alvin Dewey landed in Vegas. He had the boots, the ones with the diamond pattern sole, in an evidence bag. He had the photos of the crime scene. He was ready. The interrogation began. They separated them. Classic tactic, divide and conquer. They didn't lead with the murder. They let them talk about the bad checks. They let them talk about the parole violation. They let them get comfortable with their lies. Dick was arrogant. He thought he could outsmart a bunch of farm-town cops. He denied being in Kansas. He said they were in Fort Scott. He had an alibi. He had a story. Perry sat there, quiet, eyes darting around. He was the weak link, and Dewey knew it. Then Dewey dropped the hammer. "We know you weren't in Fort Scott, Dick. We have a witness. We know you were in Holcomb." The color drained from Dick's face. "We know about the Clutters." The room went silent, the kind of silence that screams. Dick started sweating. He started twitching, but he held out. "I didn't kill nobody. I don't know what you're talking about." They went to Perry. "Dick says you did it, Perry. Dick says he wanted to turn back, but you went crazy. He's pinning it all on you." It was a lie, but it was a good one. It played on Perry's paranoia. It played on his hatred for Dick's arrogance. Perry's face hardened. He asked for a map. He asked for the details of what Dick said. And then, slowly, painfully, the dam broke. On the long car ride back to Kansas, a drive that must have felt like a funeral procession, Perry Smith started to talk. He didn't just confess, he relived it. He talked about the wind. He talked about the smell of the house. He talked about how Herb Clutter was a nice gentleman right up until the moment Perry cut his throat. Wait, cut his throat? Yes. Before the shotgun. The brutality was worse than the police had imagined. Perry described the sounds, the gurgling, the desperate gasps for air. He described how he put the pillow under Kenyon's head because he didn't want the boy to suffer, even though he was about to blow his brains out. He described the look in Nancy's eyes. He took credit for all 4 murders. He said Dick wanted to rape Nancy, but Perry stopped him. He said, "I despised people like that," meaning Dick. Perry claimed he killed them because he was ashamed of what they were doing, and he just wanted it to be over. He killed them to silence the situation, to stop the chaos in his own head. "I didn't have anything against them," Perry said. "They never hurt me, like other people, like people have all my life. Maybe it's just that the Clutters were the ones who had to pay for it. That line, that's the hook, that's the chiller." The Clutters paid the price for every bad thing that ever happened to Perry Smith. They were the proxy for a world that had rejected him. They arrived back in Kansas. The town of Garden City was waiting. The crowd was huge. People were shouting, "Hang them! String them up!" The safety of the 1950s was officially dead. The killers were in custody, but the innocence was never coming back. The trial was a circus. The outcome was a foregone conclusion. Guilty, death penalty. But the story doesn't end with the gavel banging. This is where the legend begins. This is where a little writer from New York City enters the frame. A man named Truman Capote. Capote saw a small article in the New York Times about the murders. He was fascinated. He wanted to write about it. Not just a news report, but a new kind of book. A non-fiction novel. He came to Kansas. a gay, effeminate, high society writer in a town of cowboys and farmers. It should have been a disaster. But Capote was charming. He worked his way in. He befriended Alvin Dewey, and most controversially, he befriended the killers. He spent years visiting Dick and Perry on death row. He got inside their heads. He extracted every detail, every memory, every nightmare. He formed a bond with Perry Smith that some say bordered on romantic, or at least deeply obsessive. Capote was waiting for them to die so he could finish his book. The killers were waiting to die because the state said so. It was a macabre dance. For 5 long years, Dick and Perry sat on death row. They call it the corner. It's a place where time stops, where the only thing that moves is the clock ticking down to 0. While they sat in their cells, Truman Capote was out there, building their legend. He was writing the book that would make them immortal. But there was a catch. He couldn't publish it while they were still alive. He needed an ending. He needed them dead. It's a dark thought, isn't it? The writer waiting for the hangman so he can cash his check. April 14th, 1965. The appeals finally ran out. The state of Kansas was ready to collect its debt. It was a rainy night at the Kansas State Penitentiary. The gallows were set up in a cold storage warehouse. They called it the warehouse. It wasn't a sterile hospital room with a needle. It was a rough wooden structure, a trapdoor, a rope. Old school justice. Dick Hickock went first. Even at the end, he tried to play the tough guy. He shook hands with the agents who caught him. He cracked a joke. He said, "I just want to say I hold no hard feelings. You're doing a job to do." He died like he lived, trying to con everyone into thinking he was in control. The trapdoor opened. Snap. Silence. Then it was Perry's turn. The sensitive killer. The boy with the broken dreams and the shotgun. He looked small. He looked terrified. He spit out his gum into the chaplain's hand. His last words were softer. "I think it's a hell of a thing that a life has to be taken in this manner." And then he was gone. The wind finally stopped blowing for Perry Smith. The bodies were buried, but the story didn't stay in the ground. Capote published In Cold Blood. It became a sensation. It changed everything. Before this, murder stories were cheap pulp fiction. Capote made it literature. He made us look at the killers not just as monsters, but as broken, dangerous humans. He forced us to see that evil doesn't always look like a demon. Sometimes it looks like a guy with a limp and a guitar. So, why does this case still haunt us? Why is it evergreen? It's not just the blood, it's the randomness. The Clutters did everything right. They were rich, respected, religious, and kind. They were the American dream personified. And they were wiped out for $40 and a portable radio. If it could happen to them in the safety of the heartland, with the doors unlocked and the neighbors close by, it means none of us are safe. It destroyed the myth that bad things only happen to bad people. Holcomb, Kansas is quiet today. The house still stands. You can drive past it. The wind still blows through the wheat fields, whispering the same old secrets. But ever since 1959, the locks on the doors in Kansas are a little tighter. The lights stay on a little later. Because we know the truth now. We know that the monster isn't under the bed. The monster is driving a black sedan down a lonely highway, looking for a house with the lights off. So tonight, when you lay your head down, listen to the wind. And maybe, just to be sure, check the lock one more time.